Okay, everyone. I just bought this Shi body off Den of Angels, and it had been previously dyed yellow to try and match the Volk's yellow. And I've been trying to clean this body up using the whitening baking soda method. Maybe using some OxyClean too. This water here is full of OxyClean. I've been putting this Arm & Hammer Advanced Whitening Toothpaste on it. It's got baking soda and peroxide in it. I've slathered it on there, let it set, and then pulled it up. Didn't really notice much of a difference. It did lighten it a little bit, but not much. And then I did it again and been letting it sit for another... Before I let it set for like 12 hours, and this time I still let it for about 4 hours. And I've also been scrubbing it with these dry erase pads, and it was scrubbing the yellow off, but it took a lot of elbow grease. Okay, let me show you. See these, like the shoulder blades right here? That's where the dry erase has managed to rub some of the dye off. I'll show you right here too. Around here in the edges, it's managed to rub some of the dye off. I mean, this was super yellow. See how yellow this is? And then I rubbed right here, so it's rubbed some of the dye off here. See how yellow this is compared to this? This is the normal color right here. I've been using these. This one I scrubbed really hard with, and this one I've been scrubbing real hard, and you can see the yellow on it. That's the dye coming off. But I've been having to scrub really hard with these dry erasers. And this was like a free one you get, but the off-brand one didn't work as well as the actual brand ones. So that wasn't working. So I just didn't really want to sit here and sand for hours and hours and hours. I did get my Dremel out with a polishing tool, but this is quite abrasive and this spins really fast even on the lowest setting. So I didn't want to dig a hole in my resin nor melt it with the speed of the friction, or the heat of the friction. So then I remembered I had bought some sandpaper, some wet or dry sandpaper, 1,000 grit. You can also get like 3,000 grit, which is super fine, but I only have 600 and 1,000, but 600 is still pretty grainy, but this 1,000 grit is just a little bit rougher than the sponge. So I figured I'd try this on it to see if it could get the yellow off any better. Now this took, just scrubbing this little piece off right here, took about half an hour of rubbing and scrubbing with this, trying to get it off. And this is also soaking it with the whitening toothpaste. But you see here, this took 5 seconds with this sandpaper. See the line I have? I'll show you. This is wet or dry, automotive 1,000 grit sandpaper. Okay? And this is dye. This, oops, sorry, my fingers are dirty. This is dye. This is not paint or anything else. Get this wet a little bit. Now you should be wearing a face mask on this because resin is highly toxic. So if you're sanding resin, please wear a face mask. But anyway, I'm going to show you how easily this comes off. See? I am barely putting any pressure on it. See that water? It's already yellow. Look, it's coming right off. I mean, like, super off. Again, I'm barely putting any pressure on this at all. So look at that. That water is yellow. And the dye came right off. Like, super instantly easy. Dip this again. See if I can get a little bit more close up. Clean this off with the water. It's coming off so much more easily. this. Now you want to do it really lightly because you don't want to make any deep scratches or anything like that on the resin. And it'd be more easier if you tore this into little pieces, but I don't want to do that right now. So, easily sand this. I'd rather go over it several times very lightly than one hard pass because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to ruin the resin. But you can see, look at this. It's coming right off of this resin. I'm just going to have to lightly sand all of the parts though. But the reason why this works, I guess, is because the dye doesn't really penetrate that far in the resin, so you can take off the very top layer and it'll go back to the original color. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer to sand all this off, but I'll give you an update when I'm done.
Thousands of tears later.
Okay, I am finished sanding everything on this Shi body. It turned out pretty well. I've got all the yellowing off. And of course I'll show you some before and after pictures. But I think it turned out really well. The only thing, like the hands and stuff, I was super afraid I was going to break off the fingers. So they're probably still a little yellowed because I was afraid to sand it too hard. I don't know if I can focus on this or not. But I was afraid I was going to sand it too hard. Let me get some lighting up in here. There we go. Oops, pardon me. But you can see that it's still yellowed pretty good, but I was really afraid of breaking off the fingers, like I said. So they're still a little bit yellow in like the fingernail cracks and the bends of the fingers, and it's like nearly impossible to get into the crevices in there, but I did try to sand around the edge right here. Sorry, my hands and stuff are gross, but yeah, I was trying to be very careful with the hands. I didn't want to break them. So the hands are still a little bit yellow, which I'm hoping that'll be covered up by blushing. And of course the feet, like in the cracks of the toes and stuff, I didn't really know how to get down in the cracks, but this is on the bottom of the foot, so you probably won't be able to see it anyway. And of course inside the grooves again. And then here turned out pretty good. Some of the deep spots still a little bit of yellowing, but you can hardly see that. And then of course inside the cavity, which I don't even know how to get to, so I did try to sand around the edges like I said, but overall this was pretty easy to sand. Like the wheel wells, the thigh wells were pretty easy to sand, so I sanded those a little bit. I didn't sand them too much because they'll be on the inside, you won't be able to see them. But I just sanded it enough to, sorry, it's blurry. Sanded it enough to, where it won't be so stark once you put the doll together. Inside the chest cavity, still pretty yellow. Now, it is much more yellow on camera than it is in person, so. Of course these pieces, all the nooks and crannies, like the cracks up here, it was very hard to sand through, and my nails are kind of yellow from the dye that I've been sanding off. It took me an entire day, plus the morning of today, to sand this all. By the time I got this group done right here, My hands were cramping so much I just had to quit. I literally could not grip anything more. That's how much sanding I had to do. Some spots needed a little bit more hard sanding than the others, but pretty much I'm happy with the overall. Yeah, this foot turned out a little bit better than this one, but it turned out overall pretty good. I mean, it's the original color again, maybe a little bit lighter. It's still kind of wet inside the joints, so I'll probably wait a little bit longer to string this up. See, it's still wet in there. Let it dry a little bit longer. Then I will string her back up and add pictures of the before and after. Alright, until next time.